Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Raven Burns Kushner. I am a fine art painter and coach. I really felt moved today to talk about how to not care what people think. And I wanted to do that topic because it's so easy for people to rob you of your true life passion and vision just based on their opinions. And it's a really tough thing to learn how to ignore the clamor of people's opinions, but I think it's really important to do so, especially if you're somebody that has dreams and has goals, and fulfilling those goals is something that's very important to you. So my background is I went back to art school after having already earned a bachelor's degree in English previously. I had taken an art course over the summer at Otis College in LA. It's actually in Playa del Rey in the Southern California area. And it was a 2D fundamentals class and a color theories class. And I just fell in love with painting. It was taught by a painter and just completely fell in love with it. So I dropped everything, enrolled in art school. And the thing about the classes over the summer is that they were pretty easygoing. It was a summer course. Everybody who was there just because they wanted to take the course. And so, there was a lot of natural passion there and camaraderie. But then art school was a little bit different. Art school, people were serious. And it was just a different atmosphere. So one thing that I wasn't aware of because I didn't know anything about art before I joined art school is that they have something that's called a critique process. So the critique process is where all of the students in the course, we have our assignments. So you'll be given an assignment, you'll have a couple weeks maybe to work on it in class and at home. And then at the end of those 2 weeks, everybody will put their work up or set it out on a table. And then we'll spend a few minutes in the beginning of class sort of walking around and looking at what everyone made. And then we'll have the formal critique, which is one by one. Each student is highlighted and everyone kind of focuses on that person's work. So people give their opinions and then the teacher will give their opinion. And then later on, it's graded. So the reason why the critique process is so unique and important is that usually when you're in school, I was an English major, so you take your test or you write your paper, you turn it in, and then you get whatever grade you get, and that's that. You don't usually get feedback from your peers about how you're doing, and you also don't necessarily have to compare yourself. I went to UCLA, so they did have a curve system. So being graded on a curve, the middle score is like the C, and then if you're above or below that, then you know kind of where you stand, but you don't directly know where you stand, like compared to the person sitting next to you, like you do in art school. So it brought up that comparison thing and the not good enough thing and all of that. The good news for me is that I was reading The Artist's Way when I went to art school, and it was my first time reading that book. And it's essential if you're an artist or any kind of creative to read that book. But that helped a lot. And I also just have a natural optimistic personality and a growth mindset. So I really never let any of it get me down. But still, it's intense when you're first faced with that critique where you worked on something and you thought it was good and you're so proud of it and then you bring it in and then all of a sudden now you're comparing yourself. Is it as good as what so and so made? What kind of a grade am I going to get? So it kind of brings in other elements apart from just the pure artistic process. So I think that this is important because, like I said, critiques and criticism and people's opinions can really steal from you. um, for example, a lot of artists, they quit after art school. Certainly not all, but there are a lot of artists that the last piece of art that they made was in art school. Like once they're done, and who knows, there's various reasons why, but a lot of it is just the stress of it. The critiques, the workload, the competition. It can rob you of the very reason why you went into it in the first place. And then also, even not just in art, like my mother, for example, she wanted to be an auto mechanic, actually. She really wanted to study and learn auto mechanics. But her mother talked her out of it because, quote unquote, girls don't do that, right? Meanwhile, I recently had work done on my car and my mechanic was a woman. So, you know what I'm saying? So don't let people steal your dreams from you, but they will if you let them. So these are some tips, 5 tips that have helped me anyway in learning not to care what people think. First of all, is that you have to get in touch with I call it the inner fire. It's like fire burning. Like think of a 2-year old that wants something. They want what they want, and you can't convince them of anything else. If they want a bicycle, it's got to be a bicycle. It can't be a pencil. It can't be a nice dress. They said they wanted a bicycle, right? So a bicycle it is. A 2-year old who wants a cookie they shall have, or else somebody's going to pay, right? So when we get to be adults, somehow, like you'll ask people, what do you want to do with your life? And people are, I don't know, like, I don't know what my passion is. I don't buy it. I don't think it's true. I think what happens, I mean, think about it. If a 2-year old knows what they want, you know what you want. The problem is that we've been beaten down, broken down, criticized to death, punished, ostracized, whatever, whatever. We've gone through all these things and we no longer trust what we want. We can't even allow ourselves to acknowledge what we want because it's just too scary. We have all these negative associations with wanting something and being told no, wanting something and being ridiculed, wanting something and not having it come to pass. So we're carrying all this kind of baggage, but I believe and I know that you do know what you want. You just have to allow yourself and give yourself the space and the grace to want it again. Because without that fire, and that's the most important thing, without that fire, you will not be able to be strong enough to not care what people think. You just won't. It's too hard to go against the grain. So if you don't want what you want and know what you want, it's not gonna happen. You are gonna cave the minute somebody criticizes you, puts you down, laughs at you, so on and so forth. So that inner fire is number one. Number two, I think if you really want to not care what people think, you've got to tap into your inner skeptic as well. The thing is, we assume that people know what they're talking about if they sound confident when they say it. So if your dream is to, I don't know, become a doctor, and all through school you were mid, you were B's and C's. And so, your best friend or your cousin or your neighbor is going to tell you you can't do that because who do you think you are? You couldn't even get A's in school. Why would you think you could go to medical school? But the thing is, we never stop to think about, well, who is this person who's offering me this critique? Who are they? They don't know anything. Are they the queen of doctordom? Do they know everything? Do they know what your potential is? Maybe you got mid grades in the past because you didn't care. Now you found something that you care about. So be skeptical, even if it's somebody who is a quote unquote expert in your field. A lot of times they don't know all that their degrees would suggest that they know. And even if they do know everything about the field, they don't know you. So nobody, I don't care who they are, can tell you what you are supposed to do with your life because nobody knows that except for your higher power and you. Okay. Nobody else can really tell you what you're supposed to be doing with your life. So when some expert tells you this, that, and the other, it doesn't mean ignore all feedback. It just means be skeptical. A skeptical person doesn't reject everything. A skeptical person says, maybe, maybe not, right? The third thing I think that you have to do if you really want to not care what people think is you have to separate yourself from the noise. I think reading success stories is a really good way to tap into your belief because that's what happens to us between the time we're 2 years old and we know what we want between, now and you're 20, 30, 40, 50, all of a sudden you don't know what you want. What happens is you've been inundated with failures, with criticisms, with all these things, with media, with all this noise. And so, what you need to do is soak yourself in belief. So everybody that's ever done anything of note has always faced laughter, ridicule, criticism, trial and error, failure, bankruptcy, like all these things have happened to them. If you read anybody's success story, you will see a litany of failure city before they achieved ultimate success. There's just no way around that. It's like in art school. Like some people, they want to be perfect right away. Like they don't want to put their ugly stuff out there because it's embarrassing. Of course it is. I mean, I can't tell you, like I was new. I went to art school as an older student. So, and I wasn't one of those people that, oh, everyone told me I should be an artist. Like I did make art, but I also wrote poetry and I wrote little short stories. Like I was just creative. So I didn't know what I was doing. I was, making stick figures. Like people say, oh, I can't draw. I, only can make stick figures. I was only making stick figures too at first. It was so ugly, right? But I wanted it so bad. I had that inner fire that I faced ridicule. I remember sitting in the library once doing my homework, and these two girls were like sitting behind me, sort of like this thing that girls do is they will talk bad about you, not to you, but just loud enough so that you'll hear. It's very passive aggressive and very stupid, but this is what people do. So uh, this one girl was saying how ugly what I was making was and everything. And it's like, it was. so so what? I was making something, they were doing nothing but sitting back there criticizing. So you have to like just know that there's a lot of mediocrity out there, and you have to get in touch with who are the successes. They've written their stories, the Wright brothers, you know, Einstein, um, Alexander Graham Bell, any of the inventors, any of the major entrepreneurs, all of them have major tales of failure and embarrassment and ridicule and on and on and on. So read their success stories and get encouraged. You are not, don't let your ego tell you that you're the only one. Everybody who's ever done anything has failed, and you will too if you ever want to do anything important. Next is, in addition to reading success stories, you got to find your tribe, like flesh and blood human beings to hang out with that are doing the thing, right? I don't care if they're online, but physical human beings, not just books, but actually like joining groups, joining networking groups or joining like groups in your field, even starting your own group. Like Meetup gives you no excuse. You can create your own group. Just have coffee and just say it's only for people who are starting businesses in tech, or this is only for people who are, I don't know, wanted, become dancers, whatever your dream is. Like put yourself around people that are actively pursuing, not talking about it, actively working on it and doing it, because you'll see, like, you'll be encouraged because, yeah, maybe one week somebody, it was a big flop and they failed at what they were trying to do, but then there's somebody else and they're successful. And like, you just see that it's all part of the soup. And whenever you have to go back with the mediocre people who are putting you down, it's like you're armed with that knowledge that success is out there for you, that there are people that are really doing this thing, and you start to relate more to those people than you do to the people that are trying to put you down or discourage you. And that's one thing that I've noticed. A very common question in like coaching groups that I've been in for entrepreneurs and things like that is, the question always comes up: what do you do if your spouse is not on board with what you're doing? And that's a very tough situation to be in, because ideally you share, your hopes and dreams with your spouse, but don't put too much weight on that spousal relationship. It can't be all things to you. There are some things that your spouse just may not understand. And if they're not an entrepreneur, they may not understand what you're doing, or if they're not an artist, or if they're not creative, or whatever it is, if they're not an inventor, whatever it is you're trying to do, they may not be able to relate to that. And the average person, if they're not pursuing something, they just won't get it. And so what happens is that everybody who's ever done anything, like I said, has faced that criticism. But it also happens that as soon as they succeed, all of a sudden everybody forgets all those doubts and all the criticism and all the laughter that they threw on you. And they're telling you, oh, I always knew that you could do it. Okay, whatever. So that's just how people are. You can't take that stuff seriously. You just have to, like I said before, get around people that get it, and also just work on succeeding, because nothing succeeds like success. So they may not get it because most people don't have a vision. So they can't see what doesn't exist yet. They can only see what already existed, what happened in the past. Visionaries, entrepreneurs, artists, creatives, even art appreciators, those are the kind of people that see into the distance. They see into the future. The average person only sees what happened in the past. So you can't expect them to see your vision. And plus, it's yours. If it's your vision, then even another visionary doesn't understand what your vision is. So don't take it to heart. Just make sure you're putting yourself around people that get it. And last but not least, I believe in the muse, whatever you want to call that, inspiration, higher power, source energy, God, whatever it is. You want to honor the muse by taking that next step. So when you do have a spectacular failure, which you will, make sure you get back on the horse right away. It doesn't mean that you can't lick your wounds or you can't feel sorry for yourself for a little while. It just means put a time limit on that up front. Like, don't just go and go to bed and pull the covers over your head and just quit. Right? You're going to want to do that 100%. But tell yourself before you go under the covers and all that stuff, and drink and eat Haagen-Dazs, whatever it is you want to do, first set a timer in your mind. Like, I'm going to wallow in my self-pity for half an hour or for 24 hours or for 1 week. I don't, whatever it is. And then after that time period is up, make your donation to the muse. What I mean by that is, whatever your field is, make an overture towards the muse to let her know that you haven't given up. So if you're an artist and your last show was a disaster and everybody hated your stuff and the critic says that, my child can do this, whatever, the next thing you do, something creative. I don't care if you make a paper airplane and scribble curse words all over it with beautiful marker. If you're an actor, go to your local, rundown little theater and just sit in the back and watch a play. Like, get involved. If you're a business person, go out there and, apply for a loan. I don't care what it is. Do something to make that overture to say, I have not given up. I'm still in this. Yes, I'm butthurt. Yes, my feelings are hurt. I'm sad, but I have a vision and I honor that vision by taking a tiny little micro step into the right direction. It's really important, because the longer you stay in self-pity land, the harder it is to get back on that horse. And you will eventually, if this is truly a vision, you will get back on that horse. But it's going to be so much harder if you sit there and you suck your thumb for 6 months or 2 years or whatever it is. Like, give yourself time to grieve, and then get your ass right back out there. 100%. All right. Well, that's what I have for this week. I'm going to be going into monk mode, I think, in the beginning of the year, getting a lot of stuff done. I've got a ton of ideas, you know, and I'll unfold those as they come forth. But for now, I really wanted to go over this topic because it's really, really important. This is the end of the year where a lot of times we're thinking about what do we want next year to be. And I think before we can really move forward with those goals, we have to cut ties with mediocrity. We have to cut ties with lowest common denominator. We have to cut ties with fitting in. And certainly we have to cut ties with caring about what people think. So until next time, have a beautiful day. Check out all the links in the description for my work, including the work you see here in the background. If you're interested in being coached on how to make your vision come true and how to, hone in on what you're put on this earth to be, send me a message and we'll have a chat. Until next time, have a beautiful day and a wonderful and prosperous week. Take care.